Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here, the Three Topics Gamer, here to give you another episode of my weekly Q&A titled People's Questions, where I answer a series of questions that have been sent to me over the past week. Now, this episode is pretty basic. I think I only had like 6 questions. There were a few other ones I was able to answer in the comment section of the last video, so if you don't hear them in this video, you know where your answers most likely are if you haven't already gotten a notification. But like always, if you happen to enjoy videos like this and would like to see more content like this in the future every week, do not forget to give this video a thumbs up and press the subscribe button. And jumping it right into the first question, because again, I think there's only like 6 of them, coming from Zach Tarf, and you want to know, out of all the Assassin's Creed protagonists, which one of them is the most skilled? You think it's Altair? No, I don't think it's him by any stretch of the imagination. I think if we're talking back adaptability and skill set, I think, just in my opinion, I'd have to go with Connor. Now, the reason I would go with Connor is because what Connor has above most other members of the Brotherhood, when you compare him to like Altair and Ezio and the Fry twins and all those other guys, they're all going into the Brotherhood relatively raw, not knowing anything. But what makes Connor interesting and makes him stand apart is the fact that he is going in with an already established set of skills. And all he's doing is taking the methods and tactics and approaches of the Brotherhood and simply mixing them with what he already knows. Now, this is kind of similar to what his grandfather and, Edward did, in which he was already a pirate and a privateer who had already had prior combat experience and already had an established fighting set of skills, and just applied them with elements from the Brotherhood. But I think that with Connor, I think his combat is a little bit more fluid. It's a lot more adaptable, and it allows him to change his approach on the fly. Not so much like someone like an Ezio or an Altair, who, don't get me wrong, they're very, very skilled, but because they follow their tactics by the book, that makes them far more predictable and more traditional. Not so much with Connor, which is why I do think he's probably, in terms of raw skill and adaptability, probably one of the better pure fighters out of all the Brotherhood members or the protagonists in the franchise. But take this, just my opinion. Next question comes from Blaring C89, and you want to know, so what happened to the idea of getting the PlayStation tattoo? Oh, that's still coming. Don't get me wrong, it's still coming. It's probably going to happen later this month. The only thing I'm trying to figure out is it's going to be either one of 2 things, and whether or not I should upload a video of me getting the tattoo. That I don't know. Those are the only 2 questions, but don't worry. I'm definitely going to be getting the tattoo before my next birthday. So yeah, don't worry. That's still coming. Next question comes from Brady Burke. He wants to know, what games do I like that are underrated? Well, I think the most underrated game that I've ever played was probably Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops, simply because it's not even mentioned all that much, but someone like me and Hideo Kojima recognize its importance to the overall storyline. I think in terms of storylines and significance to the development of the Big Boss character, it's much more significant than something like Peace Walker, which kind of just serves as his final closure to his guilt over the boss's death. But heck, that's just probably, and that's just the most underrated game that I've ever played. But there's a few others, but that's the one that really sticks out to me. Next question comes from the Batman of Neo Gotham. Oh dear. Oh boy. And you want to know, are there any certain video game characters I've seen that I thought were boring, unlikable, poorly written, etc., and are glad that you will never have to see them again? Oh yes, the entire cast of 13, the entire cast of the so-called remake of 7, the entire cast of DMC, including Bob and Steve, the entire cast of Metal Gear Solid 5, if you can even call it that, and a couple of other games I just generally don't like and care about. I mean, heck, I'm done with those games. I want to talk about them. They had horrible casts. They were just horrible games in general. Even the ones I don't even need to play. Trust me, I know a shitty game when I see it. Those just to name off a few. I don't really want to think too much about negativity. I mean, I'm dealing with enough depression and difficult things in my life, and I don't really feel like going into topics that tend to trigger me. So, yeah, let's move on to the next question, which comes from Shaheem Grimes Goku-san, and this question is just ridiculous. And I've said this before. I've said it many times in the past, and I'll probably have to say it again many, many more times over the next number of years. I don't really like mixing characters from different genres with other characters, and this one is just a prime example. And Shaheem wanted to know, God, this is crazy. Do I think that Solid Snake in his prime in Metal Gear Solid 1, which that was not his prime was Metal Gear Solid 2, unquestionably. Do I think that Solid Snake and Batman could successfully complete a stealth mission working together, and would they get into a rivalry? Grimes, I have to ask you, what the fuck is Batman doing in Alaska in Shadow Moses? He typically doesn't number one, if Batman and Solid Snake are living in the same world, Batman got bigger problems than a gigantic walking tank that can fire nukes. What's he doing in Alaska? And how ridiculous would that be to see Batman and Shadow Moses? I mean, with Liquid constantly monitoring everything, don't you think it's going to be kind of weird for him to see in the security cameras? Why in God's name is there a guy walking around my facility in a bat costume? And I think Solid Snake would be like, what are you doing here? Don't you have some villains to go fight? It's so bizarre. Tell me, Grimes, what is Batman doing in Alaska? He doesn't tend to operate outside of Gotham City unless he has to. And Solid Snake is a solo infiltrator who typically works alone unless he has no choice. So I don't see Batman getting involved. It's just weird. It's weird. Batman just doesn't work. It's ridiculous. If anything, maybe this is something Superman could take care of in like 10 seconds. So yeah, and what they get into a rivalry is like, why? What do they have? What rivalry would they have? I mean, that's weird. Like Solid Snake's a soldier. Why would Batman have a problem with a soldier doing his job? It's so bizarre. I mean, you'd have a better chance of having Solid Snake run into Sam Fisher, and even Sam Fisher being in Shadow Moses would be weird. It's like, wait a minute, why is Foxhound operating with Splinter Cell? I mean, is there some sort of joint operation that we don't know about? It's I don't even know how to answer like, what? I mean, I looked at this question for like 5 minutes, like, and that's all I could think about is, what is Batman doing and Shadow Moses? Makes no sense. I can't even comprehend that. So, no, I don't think Batman could do it because it makes no sense for him to be there. Solid Snake, did it seem to you that Solid Snake needed any help in Shadow Moses? I think he did pretty damn well for a man who was coming out of retirement. So, no, I would say no to both of them. No, I think if anything, Batman would just interfere in a situation that Snake has under control. And no, they would not get into a rivalry. That's just weird. And the last question of the episode comes from Will Williams. And you wanted to know, if I could pick any place in the world to move to and live in, where would I go and why? Well, anywhere outside of Vegas, because I hate being here in Vegas. And I probably would not want to go to California because California is just not a very good state to live in. Having lived there twice and not really had a very good time, I probably wouldn't want to live anywhere that had any natural disasters. So, I don't know. Maybe somewhere in Arizona. Maybe. I don't know. I went to college there, and that seemed like a pretty nice place. Maybe somewhere in Boston. Maybe. You know, just at this point, anywhere that gets me away from Vegas would be an upgrade. Unless it's somewhere outside the country, then I might have some issues. But yeah, there's just a few places just to name a few. And with that, those are pretty much all the main questions I was able to answer for this particular episode. If you guys have any more questions you'd like me to answer in next week's episode, be sure to send them in the comments down below. But make sure you get them into me roughly before noon of Wednesday before I start filming the next episode. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you next week.